Hi, and welcome to the Gen X Rewind podcast. My name is Evan.
And I'm Brady.
Hey, Brady, good to see you. I know that it's been kind of a slow news week.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
Not much happening in the world,
Oh man.
not a lot of high profile stories or whatever. We'll get to all of that shortly. I'm sure all of our listeners are just anxious to hear what our opinions are about everything. Right? Like
Yeah.
I always think it's funny because I watch, I see so many videos on Instagram and on X and stuff, and it's like, why do these people think that we care what they what
Yeah.
they have to say? And then it's like, oh, wait, I also have a podcast where
Right.
people probably don't care what I think. But that's the beauty of it. We're Gen X and we don't really care whether you care or not, right?
Yeah.
Like that's doesn't concern us. Informational purposes, Gen X are people born between 1965 and 1980. As I mentioned last year, we've actually entered now Gen Beta. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to those poor kids.
Hmm.
Actually, they have the benefit of growing up in a much better country today than we had probably a week ago. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
We're just two regular Gen X guys. It's mostly this podcast is mostly just us talking about stuff that's interesting to us and that we talk about current events, but from a Gen X perspective. And we kind of add our thoughts into that. If we have time, we have some segments along the way as well, but there's a lot to talk about this week.
Well, I'll say.
So we may not even get to those. We'll see how it goes, but there's a lot to talk about. Um, like I said, we don't care if you're offended by what we say, if you don't agree with us, we don't really care. We would love to interact with you, on X or wherever you want to communicate with us. We'd love to talk to you about any of the things that we discuss. But don't bring your sensitivities because we don't care. It's mostly PG, so you can listen to it in the car with your family and maybe, help your kids who maybe are in high school or college understand what common sense was all about with the Gen
That's right.
X
Is that
generation,
19,
right?
is that 1980 PG or is that 2025
Yeah,
PG?
yeah. So just for our listeners, in 1980, PG was like X now today. Right? It's like a PG movies. It feels like back then you could get away with just about anything. Like
Yeah.
violence didn't matter. It could be as violent as you wanted. That was
Yeah.
just PG.
Yeah.
I think you could say most bad words. I think maybe you still couldn't say the F word in a
Yeah.
PG movie. I think that's why PG-13 was invented. You get one. I think in a PG-13 movie, you get one F word. I
Hmm.
think that's how it works. Um, I feel like there was occasional nudity in a PG movie, but not graphic. But
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I can't
Right?
remember. Airplane, was that one PG?
Yeah. See, I don't know. It's like they've re-rated all of those, right, with the modern ratings, so it's
Yeah.
hard to know, right?
Yeah.
Because the original, just for you guys, the original Star Wars was rated G, right? And then when they redid it, I think they gave it a PG because of space violence. That's
Right.
what they called it, right? Space violence.
Yeah.
So it was different back then, but of course, most of the time we were watching R-rated movies on HBO with the squiggly.
Yeah.
It's like I just saw a post this week too. It was like it said my parents say, "Okay, we're going out for dinner," and then it's like 2 seconds later, and it's the HBO screen that says the following movie is rated R. HBO will only show this movie at night. Right. It's like every kid ran to their TV to watch the free 3-day preview weekend of HBO and
Oh,
watch an
yeah.
R-rated movie.
That's right. That's
Uh, it's funny because it's like everyone that I know did that, right? Myself included. And uh, it was always interesting because it was like I remember watching Animal House was one of the first ones that I watched when I was maybe in eighth or ninth grade, right? It's a tremendously funny movie if you haven't seen it. It's very 70s, early 80s sensibilities about everything. John Belushi, I mean, just, but it's tremendously funny and also raunchy,
Yeah.
right? And I just remember talking to like a graduate student friend of the family or whatever about it, and he said that's a tough movie. He was doing movie reviews like as his kind of a part-time job. He was maybe 24, something like that. And he said that was a tough one to review because he's like, did I laugh through the entire movie? Yes. Right? It was tremendously funny. Should I
Yeah.
have been laughing the whole time? I don't know, maybe not. Like, uh in hindsight, it's incredibly innocent, right? By I would say by today's standards, it's kind of college hijinks stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but there's some language and nudity in it, but it's kind of by today's standards again, it's like nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's really was nothing. But I just remember uh laughing at it and thinking John Belushi was hilariously funny, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, all right. So first, let's start with the things that are most recent, right? And we'll kind of work our way back through the
Yeah.
week. So I just got done watching another disgusting football game.
Uh,
Kansas City Chiefs again.
yeah.
Uh, just a heartbreaker for the Bills.
Oh,
Just won that game. And there was also some questionable calls. I got to say, there was three or four calls and they all went Kansas City's way.
yeah.
Right? It's okay if there's a couple of borderline calls if they go both ways, but they never do,
Yeah.
right?
I
It
like
just,
the ref, with the spot when it's 4th and 1, and the one ref is coming down the
yeah,
line and the other one's coming, and then this one kind of moves all around.
yeah. It's like, and then on the replay, it's like, man, it sure looked like that ball would have been on the line. It sure
Yeah.
looked like it was,
Yeah.
right? And that other catch that was like neither player was even possessing the ball and the ball kind of touched the ground and stuff. It's like that was pretty iffy.
Yeah.
And there was a few others. Of course, Mahomes got bailed out the first time he fumbled the ball. Oh no, there was offsides, and he fumbled it again. But so it's weird because usually the team that has a turnover, as you saw in the first game of the day, Washington turned it over four times. You can't win. You can't in
Yeah.
the playoffs. You cannot turn the ball over,
No, that's a
and
shame.
they just that's a pretty good team. And I think had they not turned the ball over four times, that game would have come down to the very end, right?
Oh, that was the difference. Yeah, I
But the
mean,
Eagles scored a touchdown every time Washington turned it over. So it's like that's 28 points, and they lost by 31. It would have been a 3-point game.
yeah, they were moving the ball in chunks. They looked good. They just kept coughing the ball up time after time after time, and
Yeah.
you see that with Detroit too. And it feels like to me, it felt like this was Buffalo's year. It kind of felt like all along
Yeah,
that
it
they were
did. They
going
were
to
the
make it.
better team, I'd say, during the regular season, even though Kansas City had the better record. Kansas
Yeah,
City was very mediocre for a 15 and whatever where they were,
yeah,
right? 16, whatever. They were very mediocre. A lot of their games were one score games. They barely scored 30 points. They barely scored 30 points again today. Look at the
yeah,
Eagles, 55. It's like, give me a break. That's the most points anyone's ever scored in a championship game,
yeah. I
right?
just feel like if you feel bad for teams when they give the game away by so many turnovers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if they play that team 5 times, they beat them 3 or 4 times, but because they cough the ball up like Detroit did, like Washington did, the Bills. I just feel like if they played Kansas City 4 or 5 times, they're going to win a majority of those games, and they didn't have it tonight, unfortunately. But yeah, it's too bad.
So many little things right here and there. And it's like, I said at the end of the game to my family, it's like, you played them four of the last 5 years in the playoffs. You still can't figure them out.
Yeah.
Like, so to me, like, honestly, that's a coaching problem, right? It's a coaching
Yeah.
problem. If, I mean, you'll say, well, but they turned the ball over. It's like, right, but have a game plan. You've
Yeah.
played them so many times in the playoffs. Have some kind of a game plan, right?
Yeah. And the ball went right off his
Oh
hands.
my gosh, it was right there on that fourth down play, right there.
They could have, that could have been the difference right there, and them going to the Super Bowl. They punch in that touchdown, and
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
right up with their, it's right up there with the Baltimore guy dropping that 2 point conversion, right? It's like it's right there in his hands and he
yeah,
drops it.
yeah,
And I mean, sure, that's a tough catch. The ball's kind of fluttering and all of that stuff, but it's like those are the plays that teams make who win Super Bowls, right?
yeah,
That's what it comes down to is stuff like that. You gotta nail that stuff. And
yeah.
literally, I thought about it in pre-show prep, and it was all over X. It has been for the last week. Everyone was like, please, Buffalo, beat Kansas City. No one in the world wants Kansas City to win except people who live in Kansas City. Literally. Everybody else in the league wants them to lose.
Yeah,
So what we end up with is the Super Bowl that literally no one in the world wanted. Because you
right.
can say, you could say, the Chiefs didn't want to have to play the Eagles. They would have rather played the Redskins. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, the Commodores, whatever their name is. Lionel Richie's their quarterback. It's like they didn't want to play them, I would gather. And the Eagles didn't want to play Kansas City. So literally, and everyone else didn't want Kansas City, and most people didn't want the Eagles outside of Philadelphia. So
right,
literally, no one wanted this Super Bowl.
right. Yeah,
And that's what we get. It's just a repeat from what, 2 years ago? Was it the
yeah.
same teams?
If it could have
Boring.
the Bills against Detroit, two teams that have never
Yeah. Never
won.
won a Super Bowl. That would have been such a great
Uh,
story. It would have been exciting. And now
yeah,
we get, Andy Reid's current team against his old team. Woohoo.
yeah. I
It's
know.
like, and then, they set it up at the beginning of this game, the Kansas City game. Romo or the other announcer said, there's been 8 teams that have won 2 Super Bowls in a row, and none of them have ever even reached the Super Bowl at that third year. None of them. Four of them had been to a championship game, but none of them had ever made it to a Super Bowl to even have a chance. No team in NFL history has ever had a chance for a three-peat. And right there, I turned to my wife and I said, Kansas City just won the Super Bowl. They
Yeah,
just telegraphed it to us. That's the plan and has been the plan since they won last year. We
yeah,
want a team quarterbacked by Mahomes for some reason to do something that Tom Brady never did, right? Which is win 3 Super Bowls, as if that's something that's like better than Tom Brady winning more Super Bowls than every team, right?
yeah,
7.
yeah,
It's like when you win 8, Kansas City, or Mahomes, when you win your 8th Super Bowl, I'll say, okay, now you have topped Tom Brady. And I said that about Brady too. And I lived up to it. I'm like, when he won his 5th and his 6th, then I'm like, okay, you're better than Montana,
yeah.
right? I mean, you can't argue with that. 7 Super Bowls and 10 and being to 10.
Right. Yeah,
How do you, you don't have an argument anymore. Now, that being said, Joe Montana never lost a Super Bowl, and Tom Brady lost 3. 2 of them to Eli Manning.
yeah, yeah. Go figure.
So, so I think until you go to 10 and win 7, you're not the greatest, quarterback in NFL history. You're a long ways away from it. So,
So who we going for? We want the Eagles to.
I think I got to go with the Eagles. I just can't stand Kansas City now,
Yeah,
and I think so many people, it seems like, are right there with you. We're just tired of it. We got tired of Tom Brady too, right? It was like,
yeah,
okay, enough already.
right. Yeah,
It's the Super Bowl is more entertaining when it's new teams,
yeah,
teams that have something that they will cherish forever, not winning their third Super Bowl, right? Who
right.
cares?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And we had the chance of having Buffalo or having Detroit or Minnesota or Washington or whatever. It would have been so much more interesting.
yeah.
And it's like now, who cares? I don't really care which
Or
team wins.
yeah, at least one team. At least one
At
team.
least one to have a chance, right? And it's funny because, my wife always said, well, why would the league want Kansas City? They're a small market. Why would they fix the games for Kansas City? And I've seen that on X, lots of posts, obviously from Kansas City fans, right? Well, why would the league want to fix it for us? It's simple. Everybody out there in podcast land, I will explain it to you. Who is a major advertiser for NFL games? Do you know, Brady? Who's one of their highest dollar advertisers for NFL games?
Uh, hmm. Boy, I don't know. You might have to. Let's see.
I'll give you a hint. Fumble Rooski.
Oh, yeah. That's what is that? Progressive or no?
State Farm.
State Farm. Okay.
So State Farm is probably the largest advertiser of NFL games. And their spokesperson for the last 3 years, coincidentally, is Patrick Mahomes. The NFL has a vested interest in having Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl for their top sponsor. And if you
Ah,
think it's not about money, let me tell you, the NFL is about money, period.
yeah.
Nothing else matters. It's about money. They talk
Hmm.
about player safety. They talk about the, nope, it's all about money. Why do you think they play games on Thursday night and on holidays and on Saturdays and whatever? It's money. It is about money. State Farm is an advertiser. Mahomes is their sponsor. Mahomes makes it to the Super Bowl. Gee, what a coincidence. It's not rocket science, it's money.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. It's very suspicious that yeah, that connection.
Very. Yeah,
Yeah.
very. Um, yeah, what were you gonna say?
Well, Taylor Swift is in there too. It's
Oh gosh, and Taylor Swift, don't even get me started on that. It's
every
like
yeah.
because 12-year-olds are the demographic. Like it doesn't even make that part doesn't even make sense,
No,
right? So you
sorry.
get the viewers, right? Why do you care? This is something that most people don't understand. Why do you care about having a good rating for your games, like a Nielsen rating or whatever it is they use now? Why does that matter? Why does that even exist? That rating and total viewership and market share. Do you know why? Advertising dollars, right? It goes back to that. The higher the rating, the more you can charge. That's why Super Bowl ads cost $5 million or whatever for 30 seconds. It's because of the rating that that show is projected to get. That's why you can charge more money for it.
Yeah, that's
So the more viewers, whether they're 12-year-olds or whatnot, you can claim you have a higher rating. Now, here's the part where advertisers are stupid, right? Do 12-year-olds buy Bud Light and State Farm insurance?
no.
Or, it's usually some car dealership too, Mercedes or whatever is advertising in the NFL, some car dealership or a pharmaceutical company. Which of those products are 12-year-old girls buying? None. So it's a complete like myth, but they can get an extra 5 million people watching the game because they show Taylor Swift 5 times,
Yeah,
which I still don't understand why that's a thing. Who cares?
yeah, yeah. I know it's strange.
But I mean, literally always ask yourself if you're wondering why something is the way it is. And this is not just sports. This is politics. This is the company that you work for. If you ever wonder why things are the way they are, the only answer ever is money. It
Yeah.
is money. That's what dictates it. And you're foolish or naive if you don't get that, right? And it makes life so simple to understand once you get that, right? So that is a transition to the next topic,
Okay.
which is something that happened today was uh, one of the most astounding uh, examples of what real leadership looks like, right? So if you've been living in a box or out car shopping, like you, like you've been today, if you haven't heard, we're sending back illegal criminal aliens to their country of origin, right?
Yep.
And one of those countries said, we're not going to let your plane land here with our citizens. Uh, why don't they want these successful businessmen back in their country, right? Why doesn't Colombia want all their wonderful citizens back? Gee, I can't imagine why that might be, right? So immediately, it, I'm going to read you a story because it's too good. There's a post on X that explains the whole thing. Immediately, Trump responds with sanctions against Colombia, and within an hour, they cave and uh, they're going to take their wonderful, upstanding citizens back, right? And of course, Colombia, in the history of the last 40 years, they've never had a black mark against them, right? Like nothing ever bad has ever come out of Colombia in the past, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you've seen the show called Narcos about Colombia. If you haven't, it's one of the best TV shows you'll ever watch, actually. Pablo Escobar, cocaine. They're still the major exporters of cocaine. But anyway, so here is a post from X. This is a somebody I follow, Cynical Publius. I'm not sure even how he pronounces it. But here it is. To fully understand just how remarkable today's exchange with Colombia was, you need to understand how Washington, D.C. has traditionally worked through these sort of issues and the different way it works now under Trump. To illustrate, here's the traditional approach. Colombia announces it will not take our repatriation flights. On Monday, the State Department convenes an interagency task force with DOD, NSC, DEA, INS, ICE, Commerce, Treasury, and Homeland Security. The task force meets for 4 days and develops a position paper. The position paper is rejected by the Secretary of State, who is unhappy with insufficient equity considerations are built into the process. The task force reconvenes a week later to develop 3 new equity-centric courses of action and create a new position paper. The process is delayed a week because Washington, D.C. gets 3 inches of snow. Secretary of State approves the new position paper for interagency circulation, and considerable input is received from the heads of other departments, so the task force must reconvene. The original 3 proposals, responsive courses of action, are scrapped in favor of a new 4th course of action that achieves the worst aspects of 3 prior courses of action but satisfies the interagency. Someone in state who disagrees leaks to the Washington Post, who writes a story about how ineffective the presidential administration is. The White House chief of staff sets up a session 3 days later to brief the president, who approves the new 4th course of action. Over a month after the issue is first raised, the State Department public affairs officer holds a press conference announcing that Colombia has agreed to try to send fewer criminals to the U.S., and everyone declares victory. That's how it usually went. And if you've ever paid attention to the news over the last 4 years, that's exactly how it goes,
Oh yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
takes forever. Nothing happens. They both claim, oh, yes, we've come to an agreement, and nothing changes. Status quo,
Yeah.
right? Here's the Trump approach. Colombia announces that it will not take our repatriation flights. After a par 5 third hole where he goes under par, Trump uses his iPhone to post on social media as to how the USA will destroy Colombia's economy if they don't do what the USA demands. By the time Trump gets to the par 4 sixth hole, Colombia's president has agreed to repatriate all the illegal Colombians in his own plane, which he will pay for. Trump finishes 3 under par and goes to the clubhouse for a Diet Coke, where he posts a gangsta AI image of himself and the new FAFO, if you know what that means, doctrine and it's winning and it's done.
Yeah.
That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
People who claim it can't get done and Trump does it between two holes of golf, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and just, to reiterate, these are not just illegals. These are people who are violent criminals.
Criminals,
They were, gang members. They were, violent.
murderers in most cases,
Yeah,
and drug dealers and rapists and everything else. Why do you think Colombia didn't want them back?
yeah. All
Right?
those prisons that they sent them over, now they're going to be getting them back. And you think about this in terms of how many people's lives are saved just from, that
Just
strong.
today, you might have saved 50 or 100 American lives.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's and
So then the other part of it, so JD Vance goes on a news talk thing this morning. I never watch any of that crap usually. Um, but anyway, he goes on the show, and the the what would you I don't want to call him a journalist because they're just talking head liars for the most part, right? But, she gives a sob story about, well, how do you know these people are all vetted? You don't know that they're criminals to JD. And he's like, they commit acts of terrorism and rape people.
yeah,
Well, she's defending them. She's
yeah,
defending Colombia, who has a dictator, by the way. She's defending him, not
right,
taking them. And we're mean for wanting to send back murdering rapists to
yeah,
him to save American people. And JD said, I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that type of person in the country. And
right,
that's the
right,
perfect response. It's like any normal person
right.
cannot understand how you don't get it, right? You defend rapist murderers as opposed to defending American people.
Yeah. And even on the flip side, even if they're not, even if it's just somebody that's coming in, the very first thing they do is they're
Is
breaking
break the law.
our laws. And, they found a way to get under the poverty line, get the whatever it is, $1,500 Visa card, whatever they give them, health care, all that stuff, which just further burdens all the taxpayers in the middle class. I think that there's going to be stories. They're going to find stories of
Sure, always.
grandparents who are illegals and they're having to, ship them. There's going to be a handful of those stories, but the important thing is we're taking this back, and you're going to have to do it the way that all
Do
the
it the
other
right way.
in this
Every
world.
other country has laws and they don't allow this crap to go on. Like literally every other.
Right?
I just read a story too. Somebody who was in Mexico and their visa expired. And the day after the visa expired, yep, there were the federales
Yeah, rounding them
driving
up.
them back to the border, go back to the US,
Yeah.
right? Like
Well,
Mexico does it.
no, how long would Israel exist if they just kind of had a loosey goosey?
Oh my gosh. They'd be over in 10 seconds,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. And now with this heightened, we've got more and more enemies nowadays with the Middle East and, with, Russia and China and North Korea. I mean, there's lots of groups and people that would love to see us suffer and wipe us off the map. So like Israel, I think that's just as important for us to be more vigilant. And it's good to see them getting that done.
Get
You
it
know,
done.
for our kids and our grandkids, having a safer country is a good thing. Uh, but also, I don't know if you watched him with the fires when he was in California,
Yeah.
and the mayor, hey, well, you should be able to get back to your house, and what did they say?
18 months.
18 months. And it's like, well, I think a week they can go back to a week, and he's like, I think that's too long.
Tonight.
Yeah,
Tonight. They go back tonight. Why not?
why
Well,
not?
there's regulations. I waive them. They're
Yeah,
waived.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that we're going to start to see just groundbreaking, things happen for the better. That's really going to just in history, people might get to that point where people years and years and years later look back and say, "Wow, that's when the reset button was pushed."
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. And it was interesting because I mean, there were so many stories. We'll get to some more of them, but there were so many stories from this week, similar things like that. The worst, when you think about it, one of the worst ones is thinking that it's like, okay, they went up and rounded up all these criminal, illegal aliens, right? Who were wanted murder. I mean, this is, listen, folks, this is not hyperbole. Murderers and rapists, right? And they rounded them up and sent them back. And you might say, how did they know where they were? It's because the government knew that where they were for the last 4 years and did nothing about it.
Right.
So your government allowed murderers and rapists to walk free in your community and did nothing about it. They cared more about that than they did about you and your family's safety. And if
Yeah.
your 15-year-old daughter got raped by one of them, too bad. The guy's out in 6 months,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's
Enough with the pity parties. And let me tell you, you want to know why the guy in the White House right now won? It's because of crap like that,
yeah.
right? Average people cannot understand why their own government turned their back on them. Same as the people in LA, right? Hey, the answer of, well, why can't they go back tonight? Well, because this and that. Nope, I waive all the federal restrictions.
Yeah.
Well, because
Yeah.
Trump does not accept excuses.
No, and
No, you just do it. FEMA, like FEMA's another one, right? Didn't help people in North Carolina at all after the hurricane, right? They're sitting there, they're freezing, they're living in tents, no help, no, oh, we don't have money anymore. Sorry, too bad, so sad. Trump said, you know what? I'll take $2 billion that you were using to support illegal aliens, and it's going straight to the people of North Carolina. And
yeah.
that was done like that.
Yeah.
Sent in the Army Corps of Engineers, and they're fixing it up immediately. So again, it shows you it could have been done. It
Right.
was intentionally not done on
Right.
purpose. They would
And
rather support illegal, murdering, raping aliens than our own American citizens who are struggling after a natural disaster.
yeah, so much of this boils down to just common sense, just
Common sense. And this
leadership.
is where that tugs on the heartstrings of Gen Xers, right? Because we're a common sense generation. I really
Yeah.
think that's what we are. We're pragmatic and we're common sense, right? And if it doesn't make sense and you can't get it done, it's like then you're a loser, right? It's like that's not how we operate.
Yeah.
And honestly, like a lot of Gen Xers are Reagan generation people, right? And had experienced bad government for many years prior to Reagan. We talked about this on the last podcast and Jimmy Carter's disastrous 4 years where nothing got done. It was complete disaster, right?
Yeah.
Everything was negative. And then Reagan decided we can actually make things better, and he made things better, right? But I got to say, this past 6 days have been the most impressive 6 days I have ever seen in my entire life
Yeah.
from a president.
Yeah. And he had a lot of work to do. He has a lot of work to do.
It's a
Going
lot of cleanup, right? It is a
a lot of,
lot of cleanup
lot of
and undoing disastrous mistakes and wasted money and wasted time and
yeah.
just miserable excuses and so many things. It's like, no, we're just going to do it. We're going to get it done. And, dismantling DEI, which is institutionalized racism. I don't care what anybody says, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I've experienced it in multiple workplaces. It is institutionalized racism.
Mm.
There is no questioning about it. Um, I don't understand. Like somebody posted about like even a company like In-N-Out Burger saying we're going to continue our DEI things because we think there's value in that and whatever, but we don't use it in considering who we hire. It's like First of all, if you have a program like that, the people within the company who do hire people will use it to make decisions about hiring. That's how it works. They
Yeah.
will feel pressure to make decisions based on the color of somebody's skin or whatever their
How
circumstances, right?
how else can you support that and not like I don't
So
understand.
yeah, it's so they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. It's because it's sometimes it's even like unannounced pressure,
Mm.
right? And it's very subtle. Like at a place where I worked, hey, we got a lot of resumes in. Here's five of them. All of them DEI.
Mm.
So I'm like, well, can I look at the full list? Right. So I went to the full list. It's like there were many applicants that had much better skill sets that were not presented to me by the recruiter, right?
Wow.
Intentionally excluded from me even looking at them, right? I'm like, what about this guy? I'd like to talk to this guy or this gal or whatever. And here's my advice to anybody. Why is it so hard? You hire the best people no matter who they are. It
Right.
doesn't matter. I have hired somebody from every demographic you can imagine, right? I'll stand on that. I have hired somebody from every demographic. It made no difference who they were, color
Right.
of their skin, their sex, nothing. That never mattered. It does not matter. It was like, is this person the right person for the job? Are they the best person for the job? That's it. And guess what? If you do that and if you're honest about it, you'll have a diverse group of people.
Right.
It just will so happen that that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
The minute you try to force it, now you're excluding people who might be the best person from the job. And so to root that out of the federal government, and hopefully it trickles down. I've seen some other companies say they're dumping in. I think Walmart and a couple other, even Target, I heard is dumping theirs,
It's
which is shocking.
Starbucks too. I was surprised to see their name on the list. They've
They
been
they're it's like putting their finger in the wind right there. And it's like, wait a minute, if we want to, you
yeah,
know, it's
survived.
like, but that's how you do it. A little social pressure from the president and from the
Yeah.
administration to say, let's go back because secretly CEOs would like to have better people working in their company,
Yeah.
but they were afraid of the woke mob
Yeah.
and they cowered to it. And so now now you have an administration that's saying, you don't have to fear that. We'll back you up, hire the best people, and everything will be fine. Right.
Yeah. The other thing too that definitely we should mention is just the accountability that we've been shown so far with, how many times have you seen politicians ads where they're going to secure the border, they're going to do this, do that, and then they just completely lie and turn their
Yeah.
back on it. As long as they get elected, it's like they're gone. We saw that with McCain lots of times with the border and but to see him actually come through, not caring about the likability. He's not caring that, that there's going to be people that are offended and upset. He doesn't care. He just knows this is what's best. This is what we're going to do. And we haven't had that. That's
Oh,
it
forever.
a long time.
President Trump was in Las Vegas. I mean, he nailed it when you mentioned it when he was in LA. I mean, he spanked that mayor. By the way, if you didn't know, she's a Marxist. There's like when she was younger, she was a Marxist. How did the people of LA vote for that
I
crap?
yeah,
Right? It's like it's unbelievable. And that pathetic governor who's the biggest uh idiot, weakling, whatever. I don't know what you want to call him, but it's like he went in and spanked both of them, like, and he's like, this is how a leader operates. Get stuff done. These are your people. It's your
right.
city. How do
Yep.
why does the president from Washington, D.C. care more about the people than the mayor of LA?
Right.
And let me tell you, it was clear to everybody in LA that the president cares more about them than their mayor and their governor and their city councils and whatever else. Even the bluest of blues in Pacific Palisades saw that right away,
Yeah.
right?
And hopefully that resonates,
I
and
think it will.
they have rode that wave for so long, and those crummy policies have eroded their state to such an
They're
extent.
brainwashed. They've been brainwashed and gaslit that, oh, it can't be done. You have to wait 18 months,
Yeah.
right? Why? And Trump's like, why? Well, there's regulations. No, there's not. I just wiped them out. There you go. Now now what's your excuse?
Yeah.
Stop using excuses of the government this and regulations that. That's ridiculous, right? And
Yeah.
trying to save a minnow, but allow your entire city to burn down and people to die. It's just stupid. It's like, and I remember a couple of great stories about that. But remember I don't know, remember the spotted owl? When was that? That was like the 80s, right? I don't know. The spotted owl in the Northwest. And if we cut down trees, the spotted owl would have no place to nest and they would go extinct,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Never mind that, it's not even good forest management or anything and all of this. And then somebody took a picture and there was a spotted owl nest and a very healthy family of spotted owls living in the K of a lit Kmart sign right here. Spotted owl nest. A
Oh,
neon Kmart sign with a spotted owl nest. Oh no, we have to have old growth forests for spotted owls to live. Yeah, one was nesting in a K of a Kmart,
oh,
right? That's
yeah.
one of the best stories ever. It's like it's just that's put that fish that you like so much into a fish tank for crying out loud and
Yeah.
save human lives. It's ridiculous.
So much common
And
sense.
that's common sense. Exactly.
Really is. I think just that alone is going to go a long, long way for, the next 4 years at this rate. We'll see our crime rates dropping, I'm sure.
Already is. Did you hear last week? New York City, for the first time, and it was 20 or 30 years, recorded 5 straight days without a murder.
Wow. Yeah,
And
that's,
you want to guess why? Gee, that coincides with something that happened on Monday. How could that possibly be?
yeah,
Right? And then there's pictures all over social media this week of Walmarts and grocery stores and stuff that were empty because illegal aliens were not shopping there with their free money that we gave them because they were afraid of ICE coming to get them. And so they weren't there, and people were walking around. It was safe, it wasn't crowded. It's
yeah,
amazing. And we've been so gaslit into this. Oh, this is the new reality. This is how it has to be. You get rear-ended by somebody who doesn't have insurance, doesn't have a driver's license, and you pay for it,
right,
right?
right. Or how about the free tuition for
And
illegals?
free tuition and free hotel stay and all of it. So that's all ending. That's going away, and people are self-deporting themselves because you take that money and that incentive away, and a lot of people will just leave on
Yeah,
their own. It won't be worth the hassle.
yeah,
And here's another thing. Like this this oh, woe is me stuff, like, oh, pour this, pour that. So go back to the Colombia thing. Trump works so fast that people can't get out their criticism before the problem's already solved. They run to social media and it's like, oh, you can't do that with Colombia. They sell us so much coffee and the price will go up and we won't have coffee. And they're the leading exporters of cut flowers. So happy Valentine's Day. Thanks a lot, Trump. So, and before they could even get that post out, it was already done. He'd already solved the problem, right? But here's the thing. So you care more about coffee and cut flowers than you do human American lives. That's
yeah,
what you just said. That's what you just said. Your
yeah,
cut flowers, getting them cheaply from Colombia is more important than the safety of American lives. That's what you just said, right?
yeah. That's
So
that's
here's the thing. I read about this. Guess why Colombia is the leading exporter of cut flowers to America?
hmm.
Take a guess. Because California goers were so restricted in what they could plant and when and how and everything else. And previous administrations then created a free trade deal with Colombia so that their poor people who make 25 cents an hour could send us flowers and undercut the American flower growers
Oh,
stuff to take over that particular market, right?
yeah,
So it was our own stupidity that even led to that.
yeah,
So the beauty of it would have been if it would have even gone through and Trump would have put tariffs and everything else, we wouldn't get flowers from Colombia. And guess what? Flower growers in America would be successful and hire real workers to do real jobs and everything else. And then this is the other one, and I posted it multiple places. They're like, well, what do we do without Colombian coffee? And it's like, here's an idea. The actual best coffee in the entire world is grown right here in good old America. It's called Kona coffee from Hawaii. And for you geographically challenged people, that's a US state. And they grow the best coffee in the world in Hawaii. Kona
yeah,
coffee, it's the best that you can get. And people say, yeah, I look, but it's really pricey. Okay. So a bag of coffee, of Kona coffee, 100%. Don't get the mixed stuff because they'll mix it with Colombian coffee, right? 100% Kona coffee. First of all, it'll be the best coffee you've ever tasted. Second of all, $50 a bag. You'd be like, oh, it's so expensive. How many cups of coffee do you guess you get out of a even a half pound bag of whole beans? About 20.
mm,
How much would 20 cups of coffee at Starbucks cost you? A
yeah,
hundred bucks, right? Hundred
yeah,
bucks. So it's half as expensive. Kona coffee would be as going to Starbucks
yeah,
and 50 times better,
yeah.
right? So we can do without Colombian coffee. Also, my own personal second favorite is Ethiopian coffee or grown on the slopes of Kilimanjaro. That's like my second favorite coffee in the world. And that is their livelihood there, right? They grow the coffee, the local folks there, they have local farms and whatnot in Africa. They grow and sell the coffee, and that's their livelihood.
Mm,
It's not going through some dictator in Colombia,
right.
right?
Yeah,
And in my opinion, it's better anyway. So
yeah. No, I think if we could, and it sounds like we're moving in that direction of being a self-sufficient
that's
nation.
it.
We have our oil. We don't need to buy it from the Middle East. You know, we can, the farming system we've got here, we should create our own so we're not relying on other countries. Tariff everyone else, so extras we can share and sell and bring in wealth.
But Brady, without illegal aliens, who's going to pick our lettuce?
Well,
So So what cracks me up about like that statement is like, but Brady, without slaves, who's going to pick our cotton? Right? The intrinsic racism and belittling of an entire group of people
yeah,
that how will you continue to live your life without their slave labor?
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Why do you think that illegal aliens pick lettuce? It's because they'll work for a lot cheaper than Americans will work. And then people say, well, your lettuce price is going to go up. Let's see. Safety and security and legal people in the country, or I pay 25 cents more for a head of lettuce, right?
well, yeah, and there's got to be ways you can tariff things as
Of
you know
course.
keep those costs down and keep
This
our
this whole
great
it
jobs.
it it shows me that the we have generations of people who have never taken an economics class, right?
Yeah,
Literally. And it's interesting because most universities you go to, they're as liberal as all heck, right? Most of them are woke and the professors are there and they're tenured and they feel like they can say whatever they want to say and get away with it and, espouse communism. Like it just hasn't been, done correctly, right? Like that's what they constantly say. I went to a public university. The best classes that I had there were economics classes because economics professors know the real world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Economics is a very simple thing, right? And you just break it down and it's the same everywhere all the time. And some basic principles are in play there. And if you went back, people say, well, if you put tariffs, then everything will be we buy will be more expensive. Well, first of all, stop buying things that are tariffed, right? Foreign goods. Stop buying them. Buy American goods. They will be produced for now they will be less expensive, right?
Mhm.
And
Right.
since people working there will be have a job and have money, they can also afford to buy American made things. And when we're not spending about $50 billion supporting an illegal alien uh, economy, then the US government will have more money than it can possibly imagine with
Mhm.
that. So literally the plan is go to a tariff system, which is what the United States had before 1913. Of course, school doesn't teach you that. The first 150 years of the United States, there was no income tax. It was created to support wars, right? So if we stop having wars, we don't need an income tax either because that's the major expense. Look at the budget. It's mostly the vast majority of the money spent is on defense.
Mhm.
Take away the need for wars and war spending, you cut the budget. Take away the need to spend on illegal aliens, you save a lot more money. Reduce all of these unnecessary programs, it's more money. You buy American products, you put tariffs on foreign products, those companies move here, they create more jobs, that's more people in the workforce, everything gets better. You can transition to the point where you do not need an income tax anymore. You can have a consumption tax. You might not even need that at some point in the future. It
Yeah.
has worked. It has been proven that it works. It worked for this country for 150 years until we decided we wanted to be involved in world wars all the time, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting just to see how all of this snowballs and benefits our economy's going to be. You got to assume our the stock market's going to be taken off here before too.
Yeah. Especially with American companies who make the products here, right?
Absolutely.
So think about it too. It's like, let's say you made $100,000. How much, what's your take home pay after taxes with $100,000? It's about 60, right? Somewhere between 60 and 65,000 is your take home pay when it's all said and done, right? So the government takes $35,000. Think about what you buy during the year. And if each of those things, the price went up a little bit, but you now have 35,000 more dollars over the course of a year. Think of that. That's $3,000 a month
Yeah.
to spend on food and gas and whatever else, right? Think of how much of a plus you come out on that, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
huge. Like, don't worry about the price of things. That will also come down. Guaranteed gas prices will come down
Oh
when we
yeah.
produce the oil ourselves, right? It's been proven time and time again. When Trump left office, gas was at my local gas station, it was 209.
Hmm.
And we have not paid anything close to that in the last 4 years. And
Yeah.
most of the time, it's been in the high threes and fours,
Yeah.
double, 100% increase on that, right?
Yeah.
It's just economy, it's economics, and it's not rocket science. And these things have been proven and tested over time, and they work. And you got to reduce the size of government. You got to get rid of all the fluff. You got 2 million government workers, and they were told they had to go back into the office, and they're all complaining about it and whatnot. It's right because you might have to work.
Yeah.
And I have firsthand experience in this. I worked for a company that was headquartered in the DC area. This is like 20 years ago. And we had a couple of government contracts. In fact, this is interesting right here. This is not our show and tell thing, but um, we had government contracts. And so I would fly out there occasionally. and visit with some of our clients. And one of our clients was the GSA. That's the General Services Administration. They're the guys who do like pay the bills, really, a lot of stuff, right? We had a contract with them for a learning management system back in the day. And so I went to their government office. And when you go to their government office there, uh, they have, you get a badge. Can you see that purple thing?
Yeah.
So that says you can't really read it anymore, but it has my name and signature, and it says the date is, oh my gosh, I didn't read the date's 9/11,
Wow.
1998. Uh, and then it has the extension number of the person at the GSA that I was visiting. So you take this badge and you put it on, right? When you're in the building. When you go outside, it gets exposed to sunlight and turns purple,
Hmm.
and you can't get back in.
Oh,
So that I have this folder. I've had this folder now for 27 years. So actually, whoever makes this is a Cambridge. This is a pretty good folder, right? Thing looks brand new. 27 years old.
yeah.
Um, and so I met with our client, this lady who works for the GSA, and we were telling her about this project. We were talking to her about the project and stuff, and she said, "Yeah, my goal is just to slow roll this thing till I get my pension."
Wow.
That's their attitude. I don't want to have to start another project before I retire. So I want to make sure that this project takes about 2.5 years
Oh,
until completion, because that's when I retire and get
wow.
my pension.
Nice.
That's the mentality of probably about 85% of government workers,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to
Yeah.
do as little as possible and then get my pension and
Well,
retire.
and just to kind of piggyback on that, you think of how patriotism has eroded over, since we were kids, and how important that was a fabric of our country to be proud of being American and in your country. And you just see how it's eroded so much. And now, I think that they're gonna, potentially bring that back when, the people that you see, that they're here legally and that they pay taxes and they are a fellow American that, you are in a brotherhood with. It's, I think that it just has such a trickle down effect. So many good
Yeah.
things when they've got these things going, week one. And it's really incredible.
Yeah. It's been, I don't know, I think there was 350 executive orders signed in the first 6 days, something like that. They're going so fast, the media can't even keep up, right? They just and I guarantee that was the plan,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
just it's one thing after another. They don't have time to generate their audience at a show and have people complaining about it because the next thing is Trump's already 5 things past that by the
yeah,
time they get around to complaining about it, right?
yeah,
And it's kind of it's a great strategy from that standpoint. It's like get as much done as possible and just keep moving,
yeah,
right? The Secretary of Defense, being nominated and passing the nomination, all of that. This is a great guy, right? He's got a beautiful family, and he's not. I'm pretty sure he's not going to take crap, right? Like it's just that's the mentality of the administration right now. It's like we were hired to do a job. We told you exactly what we were going to do. People voted for that in huge margins, won by 5 million votes and, I don't know, 100 electoral votes, whatever it was. We have a mandate. We said what we were going to do, and we're going to do it, right? Get out of the way. This is what people hired us to do. This is what we're going to do.
yeah.
You can, and here's the thing: we want everyone to be successful,
Mhm.
even people who don't agree with us, right? We want everyone to be successful. We want everyone to benefit from it, not just our cronies and people in government. We want every American to be safer and more economically prosperous,
Right. Right.
no matter who you are, what
Yeah.
party you're in, what race, creed. It doesn't matter to us. We want everyone to be successful. Why is that so hard to understand?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And despite all those things being done, still having time to walk the Las Vegas casino
Oh
floor.
gosh, that was hilarious. Wasn't that great? You're shooting craps in Vegas and Trump walks up.
Can you imagine? Oh man. Oh boy, that'd be
That
a
was hilarious. And then, when he was in Vegas, I was mentioning it earlier, and he gave a speech and he said, he gets calls from world leaders and they're just so starved for love from the US because they would call Biden and he would never pick up the phone.
really.
And his staff would say, he'll call you back in 2 months. And they would not call back. So then the premier or the president of some foreign country would have to call back and say, hey, you said he would call, he didn't call. Yeah, yeah, we'll get to you. Never got to talk to him at all.
Wow.
Absolutely a non-existent president for 4 years.
Yeah.
And listen, folks, this is not hyperbole. More was accomplished in the last 6 days than the last 4 years, and it's not even close,
Yeah.
right? And Trump has spoken more minutes with reporters and the media in 6 days than Biden did in 4 years. That's not hyperbole,
Yeah.
right? He sat there signing executive orders in the Oval Office, by the way, not some staged studio, not in the White House, which Biden usually did. In the Oval Office, sat there and talked to them for like 3 hours, just
Yeah.
off the cuff. What's this one, Mr. President? Well, this is that, and then we got to do it because of this and whatever else. They don't even know what to do with themselves, right? They
Yeah.
can't even keep up with the guy.
Yeah.
And he stopped when he got off of Marine One with Melania. Every time he stops, talks to him, takes their questions. He said when he was doing that speech, he said, the president of some country calls and they're like, "Hey, Mr. President, it's the prime minister of Germany or whatever. Do you want to take their call?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." Just boop, yeah, hello. You know, and the person on the other end is like, "Wait, what?" It's like when you call somebody and you don't expect them to be there and you're hoping to leave them a message, and then they actually pick up and you're like, "Oh crap. I didn't think I was going to have to talk to you." you know? And Trump's like, "Yeah, let's just get it over with. What do you want?" Right? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah.
And talks to him. And then he's like, they don't want to, once you get them on the phone, they don't want to go. They've been starved to talk to us for so long. And there was a non-existent executive for 4 years.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Hey, Brady, do you want to do three questions or do you got to go?
Yeah. We could, I mean, we could rapid fire.
All right, I'll rapid fire. I'll fire off mine here first. Let me grab my graphic here so it looks professional. All right. What video game were you best at when you were a kid?
Okay. So I would say Golden Axe. I don't know if you ever remember
No,
that.
I never even played that one, I don't think.
Yeah. That was an
Was
adventure.
that what platform was it on? Or what was it, a arcade game?
It was an arcade game. Yeah. It was all about making your quarter last as long as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was a really fun game that you could stretch it out. It was an adventure. You could choose to carry an axe. There's a dwarf with an axe, a man with a sword, or a woman with a. I think she had a sword too. But I just got really good at it. My friend and I we'd play it together, and we could just. You could probably go 15, 20 minutes on one quarter. So that one was a
That's pretty
favorite.
good. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
yeah.
I
It's almost
was a Super Mario player. I still love that game.
yeah.
And my son and I were just watching. There's a documentary on Netflix about speed running guys, and they spend all their time speed running old games like Super Mario, Super Mario 3,
Huh.
Mike Tyson, the the boxing one. I forget what the name of that was, but
Punch out.
um, Punch Out. And but the world record holder for the speed run on Super Mario is 4 minutes and 55 seconds.
Wow.
I
Wow.
spent countless hours getting through that stupid game.
Yeah.
And this guy can speed run it in 4 minutes and 55 seconds. That's pretty
Wow.
frustrating. All right, you lived in Michigan when you were a kid, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you play outside in the winter? And what did you do?
We did. I actually had a snowmobile suit. I don't know most.
Yeah. Oh gosh, those are awesome.
Yeah, they probably don't even know what that is, but I mean, you climb into that
It's a
thing.
onesie. It's a
Yeah,
it's a puffer jacket that's a onesie.
it
That's
is.
what it is.
It is. It could be.
Head
Oh,
to foot.
yeah. You could be 20 below, and you'd be nice and toasty
You'd
with
be
that.
sweating in that thing. If you were shoving your drive in a snowmobile suit, you'd sweat. You'd
Yeah.
see guys with it zipped down and it like peeled off, because
Oh,
they were so hot.
those were made for.
It's walking around in one of those sleeping bags that they use on Everest. That's
Yeah.
essentially what it was,
Yeah.
right?
That was big. If it was a school day where you were, they canceled school because of snow. Boy, you'd be outside, yeah, playing
Oh yeah.
snowmobile suit on. Yeah, it was. And then you come in and get your cocoa or your
Yeah.
hot soup, and yeah, it was.
Now here's a tough question. Like kids, you're in a snowmobile suit. It takes about 5 minutes to get out of that thing, and you're off playing at some park, half a mile from your house, and you gotta go. Uh, I gotta say, I probably peed in mine probably 2 or 3 times as a kid. It wasn't worth walking home and getting out of that thing.
oh,
So
man, I
they
would.
were washable for those of you who are shrieking in horror. You could put them in the washing machine.
They don't make those for middle-aged men for a reason.
No, we would never get out of it in time. It's like that would not be smart, right? Oh gosh.
Yeah.
All right. Did you have a job when you were a kid?
I did. I had the paper route, which I
A
did.
paper route.
I was little, and then yeah, in high school I worked at Builders Square, which is kind of like a Home Depot,
Home Depot, yeah.
which was a grunt. Oh man, load up cars with pallets of stone and rock, and it
Yeah.
was not a fun job in the
And you
summer.
probably made 225 an
Yeah,
hour doing it.
yeah, yeah. That's when you're introduced to government taxes and
Yeah, and then you get your paycheck and you're like, what?
wait a minute, there's missing so much. This can't be.
This can't be right.
This,
Somebody proposed that there should be no tax on wages earned by people under 18.
yeah,
And I'm all for that. Why are we taxing 15-year-olds?
no, I know. Let them.
It's ridiculous. They can't even vote and they're taxed. That's
Yeah,
voting without representation or taxation without representation.
yeah,
Wipe away the tax on all of our high school employees and paper boys. You're taxing a 10-year-old paper boy. It's
yeah.
like, are you serious?
I mean, over the age of 60, 65, don't tax. Under the age of
Yeah, come
18,
on.
don't tax. Come on. Yeah.
I had a paper delivery job too when I was literally 10,
Yeah.
right? And you'd get the paycheck and it would be $12. And it was 15 and you'd get 12. And you're like, what a ripoff. I could
Yeah.
have bought like 10 packs of bubblegum cards. Stupid government took all my money. All right, that's my three. What do you got for me?
Yeah. So one is, did you ever attend any church camps when you
Yeah,
where you do the sleep like a camp
yeah.
have a tent?
So, well, it wasn't. I didn't do. They had in Minnesota. Like my church had there was a big camp. It was called Trout Lake, and of course, well, I mean, they're all called that, right? So it's like
Big
it's
moose,
always,
trout.
yeah, it's always some Bear Lake. It's like, uh, and it was fairly far north in Minnesota,
Yeah.
and but it was big, and you'd go there, and it would be like fifth and sixth grade boys, right? And there would be like 600. It
Wow.
was just huge. There was, 20 or 30 cabins and
Wow.
15 in a cabin. And uh, so here's the thing, like, I that's not my vibe. I like being out in nature, right? I really do. I love nature and the trees and the lake and all that stuff is beautiful. I don't like being around 600 kids. I didn't then and I don't now.
Yeah,
That I'm an introvert and that it was not enjoyable.
that's
Like
therapy.
I liked hanging out with the two or three guys that were my friends who went with me. That was fun. But
Yeah.
then they always like, oh, you and 20 other guys have got to do this activity together. And it's like, I don't know those randos, as my son would say. Why do I want to hang out with them?
Oh
And
man.
then the food was crap. I was a picky eater back then, and it's like camp food. It was disgusting, right? So you go to the canteen and you buy Mountain Dew and Skittles, right? Like hey, get home. Hey, what'd you eat at camp? Mountain Dew and Skittles. That all you had? I had some Spree, some sweet tarts, maybe a couple candy bars. I
Oh
think they had
man.
popcorn one night, right? It's like, yeah, nothing good. And when you're a fifth and sixth grade boy, you don't really want to take a shower with other fifth and sixth grade boys. Like you haven't been to junior high or high school where community showers,
Oh,
like Auschwitz, it's like,
that's
what is this?
yeah.
Right?
That
And so it's like wear your bathing suit and your shoes, right? It's like it was creepy.
yeah.
So yes, there was another camp for the more adventurous where they had the tents and they went way up north, Boundary Waters,
Oh, okay.
and you do more canoeing and stuff like that. And it was tents, but I never did that. It didn't. It just seemed like that was a lot of hassle too, right? I don't know. It was just it was a hassle. Now, in hindsight, I know why my parents sent me to the camp.
Right.
It's like, woo, get a week free.
Yeah.
It's like it all makes sense now. It's not for, oh, you'll have fun. This will be great. It's like it was all about them getting a free week. It's like, come on.
Oh
I
man.
bet you went in Michigan, right? There's camps everywhere there.
Yeah, we did. There was one just real quick. There was one that was called Camp Barakel, and I actually think that one we had to drive to Ohio for. But it was
Oh, wow.
a church camp, and we had chapel in the morning, and then you had activities and all that. And it was a similar. It was a big camp. But the one thing I'll never forget was they did one day. They had our cabin of, I don't know, six guys. We hiked, we brought all of our gear and we hiked out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there's nobody around. These are, we're in the
Right.
forest and we found a clearing and put this tarp down on the ground and basically had our had our sleeping bag uh, to sleep in, and you basically just slept out under the stars. And looking up, all of us are shoulder to shoulder on this tarp,
Right.
but we're looking up and just talking and seeing the stars. It was a unique thing that I really would somehow like my kids to experience that. That was really neat. And then in the morning, basically just having a can and getting wood and stuffing it under the can and poking two holes in the side. And we had eggs where we lit that on fire and used it as like a little stove and cooked
That's
eggs.
cool.
I mean, yeah, that was a memory that I'll never forget. It was that part of it was really, really neat. But yeah, it was, I know what you
I
mean. There.
did go later on in high school. I did go with my parents to a family camp.
Uh-huh.
And actually, it's interesting. That was in Camp Burton. That was in Ohio, I think, actually, but near Western Pennsylvania. It was like, and there was Amish people like around too. So I mean, it was out there, right?
Yeah.
And the good thing about that was that there was high school girls there. So yeah, I met some really nice high school girls at that camp, and I'm still friends with them. Like this is like 45 years later, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty fun. A couple of them went to the same college that I went to and stuff. So that was kind of fun. And we went into town for something one day, and there was Amish people there. Maybe I told this story before. Amish people there, and standing next to an Amish guy, and there's a guy demonstrating a potato peeler, and he turns and he looks at me and he's like, "Wow, what they won't think of next." You know, it's like you've seen cars, right? Like in the parking lot, you know. But he was really impressed. It was a really fancy potato peeler, and the Amish
Well,
guy was like really impressed with it. But they were super nice.
yeah,
And it's, it's like a practically a tourist thing there to
yeah,
go and see the Amish. They're not thrilled about that.
I'm
But if
sure.
you just kind of meet one at a farmer's market or something, right? They were super nice, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's neat. Yeah. So, did you, growing up, did you have a childhood nickname?
I really didn't have a childhood nickname like when I was a young kid. Like really good friends would sometimes call me Ev, right? And I never told people to call me that, but every once in a while, really good friends, even to this day, it's funny. Somebody will call me Ev, and I know right there I'm gonna like that person.
Yeah.
That they sensed that that might be a way in is
Hmm.
to give me that nickname. It was usually girls, actually, but some guys too.
Yeah.
But that wasn't like my friends didn't call me that or anything. Then when I got to high school, one of my best friends, a black kid from my school, of which there were two, gave me the nickname Big E. And there
Hmm.
was a basketball player back at the time named the Big E. He called me the Big E. Uh, and then it just kind of became E, right, for short. And pretty much everybody in high school called me E by the time I was a senior in high school. In
Okay.
fact, I would just write on my paper where it said name, I would just write E.
Hmm.
And probably two-thirds of the teachers called me E. And my
Oh,
baseball coach called me E, right? That was just a thing. But the interesting thing about that is it's like my name Evan, it doesn't have any bad nicknames, right? It's not Richard
yeah.
or, there's not a bad nick. No one was ever able to come up with a name to tease me with a rhyme for Evan. There's nothing 7-11. Ooh, stop with those terrible. Nobody ever came up with a bad nickname,
Yeah.
right? And it's kind of the way it is with my son. His name's Jonah, and nobody's ever come up with a bad nickname for him,
Yeah.
right?
That's good.
Nobody's ever come up with a bad nickname. Now, it's funny because people always say it's like you got to think of bad nicknames that they could come up with for your kids, right? And there's a famous family, a doctor, counselor guy, and he said, so we were very careful to think up names for our daughter and make sure that, it was a good name. It was a little bit unusual, but not, crazy where people would make fun of her. So they named her Danae, and it was like Denea, I think, or something. Danae, right? And of course, she comes home from middle school, and the kids are calling her Decay.
Oh, jeez.
It's like best laid plans,
Yeah.
right?
They'll
So,
find a way to, yeah.
yeah, so parents out there, be really careful. Initials, too. Be careful of initials.
Right.
And remember that people like to do things like J-Lo and Cujo and things like that, like with first couple initials and last two initials. So also be careful with that,
Yeah.
and first and last name combinations, or, it's like, it's kind of important. So sort of be careful about that, parents, right?
Yeah.
You got
Well,
one more for me?
yeah, well, I was just jotted down just real quick. Is there anything that you did, especially in Minnesota, in as a kid that you really want to, well, that you might not do anymore that you'd like to have your son experience?
I mean, yeah, part of me would like to do the Clark W. Griswold Christmas Vacation and go cut down a Christmas tree.
Okay,
I'm kind of allergic to pine, like when it's in my house.
I see.
Uh, so that probably won't happen. But we talked about it on a Christmas podcast that was fun. We both did that as kids, right?
Yeah.
And that was actually pretty fun going out and cutting down a Christmas tree. So I think that's one. Um, I don't know, just like playing in a creek or
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah.
Like that was like a pond or a creek and just playing
Yeah.
in and around it with
Yeah.
friends and skipping rocks and, just doing kid stuff,
Yeah.
grabbing a frog or a crawdad or something, right? I mean, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Catching a snake, putting it in a tennis ball can, which I did one time. Hey, let's take it home. I have this tennis ball can. Oddly enough, the snake didn't want to go into the tennis ball can. But and riding my bike out out of town, like
Yeah.
out somewhere,
Yeah.
right? There's no it's that's hard to do in Arizona.
Yeah.
And it's 110 degrees, so you might not want to do it anyway, but it's like that's something that was independent and fun and
Yeah.
always loved it and enjoyed it. And it was some of my actual fondest memories of being like a 10-year-old was taking my bike and going a long ways away.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to text you earlier. Yesterday, it warmed my heart to see two boys. They were probably 10, 10, 11. They were riding there, and it was the same type of bikes, that we had, the Huffy type looking bike. And they were just talking and pedaling away. And I thought, man, it's
That's
funny.
awesome, right?
All
That's
these,
the fun stuff.
yeah, it brings back memories for sure.
Yeah, that was one of those things where I, there was just sort of a freedom about that. And like the movie, what is it, Stand By Me? Uh, where the three friends go off. Was it three friends or four friends? I can't remember now. But they just go off on an adventure, walking train tracks, and they were gonna go see a dead body, which is funny,
Yeah,
right? Like the whole thing.
yeah,
It was that's what being a kid was like when we were kids, right? And you would just go off and you'd walk or ride your bike to a pond and throw your bike down and skip rocks and just talk and laugh and do silly stuff and no one cared.
right.
There was a sense of freedom about that and it was really enjoyable. And literally every Gen Xer that I've ever talked to has had a similar experience like that and
I've noticed
a
that.
great, great fondness for
Right.
that particular time of their life, right?
Yeah,
Even when they had family problems and stuff, it was an escape,
right.
right? They could, mom's yelling at you, your mom, dad getting divorced, get on your bike and go somewhere,
Yeah. Go to your friend's
you
house.
know. And
Yeah.
and now what do kids do? They go up in their room and they turn off the lights and they turn on a computer or look at their phone.
Yeah.
It's not the same, right? It's a weird escapism,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
Ours was better,
Yeah.
right? It just
Yeah.
was.
Just climbing a tree,
Yeah,
just
climbing a tree,
doing something like that with your.
getting a wood tick, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like those are good. It's getting skinned up knees and skinned up elbows and scraping your hand and getting a splinter and
Yeah.
just all of that was somehow fun
Right.
and it's that independence and it's why Gen X, a lot of Gen X people, not everybody, maybe not everybody in our audience, and that's okay. We don't care if you're a different political party and have different views. Like I don't care. That's fine. But there's a certain independence in somebody like a Trump that really appeals to a lot of Gen Xers because that's the spirit that we liked from that time period.
Yeah.
Was just, say stuff. And he probably reminds us of our dads. Oh,
Yeah.
you don't like this rule? Too bad.
Because I said so. Yeah.
It's like be home by 12. I don't want to be home by 12. It's now 10.
Yeah.
Would you like to go again? Try for 8?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
It's a
so
pretty
true.
good negotiating technique, right? No, no, 12's fine.
Yeah. Let's go back to before I was complaining.
Yeah.
Where do
Can
I?
we turn back until before I was an idiot? And that's exactly what the dictator of Colombia did today. Wait, let's go back and I'll send my plane to pick
Yeah,
up my degenerate people and bring them back myself.
yeah,
Sorry that I screwed up there for a second,
yeah.
right? And then Trump will be like, oh, okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, just don't do it again,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
I'm excited to see what the next week brings because I mean, for anybody out there, it's like just be on X, right? Twitter, just be on there. It's just nonstop, something happening like all day long. It's amazing. It was an amazing week. And I'm
yeah,
waiting for Elon to publish what the numbers are for the engagement for the week. It's going to be a record. I guarantee. It's
yeah,
going to be the biggest week that Twitter has ever had.
yeah, yeah.
So, all right. That's going to wrap it up. That's our little family walking down a safe street in,
Right.
middle USA.
No,
Uh, yeah, it's an awesome place. Remember to hit subscribe and like YouTube, Spotify. We're on Amazon Music. You can catch us on our Instagram channel as well. We're on X. I posted some product openings this last week because that was fun. Some of them got a pretty good grade. I'll do that when I get some interesting products over time. I think that's always fun. We are also on UHF channel 75 in Tallahassee, Florida. We
no,
just got that market this past week. They had a snowstorm. And did you see that? They had 10 inches of snow in New Orleans.
crazy. Yeah,
Did your brother get snow down in Georgia or whatever compound he's living at now?
yeah, he did. Well, no, I think they had a. Well, I'll have to ask him because I
I
think
saw an alligator frozen in a lake. But here's the interesting thing, they live.
yeah,
They survive, right? They can actually kind of freeze and then come back to life.
yeah.
I've never seen anything like it to see people in on the like Pensacola, Florida, and there's like 10 inches of snow on the beach
Oh wow, yeah,
right next to the Gulf of America
yeah,
down there in Pensacola, Florida.
yeah.
So anyway, for myself and for Brady and our producer, wink wink. We hope you have fun and take your bikes and go for a ride with your kids somewhere out in the wilderness. Just be home before the streetlights come on. All right.
All right. Have a
All
good one.
right. We'll see you next time, Brady. We'll see you.
All right.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good week.
We'll see you.